France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin. Upon this battle depends the survival of Christian civilization. Upon it depends our own British life. The whole fury and might of the enemy must very soon be turned on us. Hitler knows that he must break us on this island or lose the war. If we can stand up to him, all Europe may be free and the life of the world may move forward into broad, sunlit uplands. But if we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age. Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will say, this was their finest hour. Should the invader come to Britain, there will be no placid lying down of the people before him, as we have seen, alas, in other countries. We shall defend every village, every town, and every city. The vast mass of London itself, fought street by street, could easily devour an entire hostile army. We would rather see London laid in ruins and ashes than that it should be tamely and abjectly enslaved. And if the Nazi villains drop on us from the skies, you will make it clear to them that they have not alighted in the poultry run, or in the rabbit fold, or even in the sheep fold, but in the lion's den.
Behind that distant, peaceful-looking French shore, the mightiest military machine the world has ever known is gathering to spring. What else is the deadly power of the German initiative planning?
What else had they got ready, prepared and organized to the last inch? Would they suddenly pounce out of the blue with new weapons, perfect planning, and overwhelming force upon our almost totally unequipped and disarmed island at any one of a dozen or score of possible landing places? He would have been a very foolish man who allowed his reasoning to blot out any possibility against which provision could be made. This was a time when all Britain worked and strove to the utmost limit and was united as never before. Men and women toiled at the lathes and machines in the factories till they fell exhausted on the floor and had to be dragged away and ordered home, while their places were occupied by newcomers ahead of time. The one desire of all the males and many women was to have a weapon. Nothing moves an Englishman so much as the threat of invasion, the reality unknown for 1,000 years. Vast numbers of people were resolved to conquer or die. All over the country, in every town and village, bands of determined men came together armed with shotguns, rifles, clubs, and spears.
One night, Mr. Churchill spoke to us on the wireless. This was during the days before the Home Guard was even started. He said there was a terrible shortage of guns. Find any weapon, he said, and if the Nazis come, take one with you. And if they had come, I'd made sure I'd take one with me.
Among these people was Mr. Oliver Nichols, who demonstrated one of the Home Guard's primitive anti-tank weapons to the King.
This is the sort of thing it was. Equipped with these Molotov cocktails, well, we felt we could take arms against a sea of trouble. It's a very, very simple device. No doubt it became extremely sophisticated afterwards, with fuses and whatnot. But originally, we just half-fill these with petrol, soak this in a little bit of petrol methylated, and then when we saw a tank coming along, or if we were told if we saw a tank coming along, we'd take these like this and we'd hurl them like that. Elated by my success, I said to the assembled staff and everyone present, stand back, I'm going to throw another. At that point, the king looked up and he said, no, no, for goodness sake don't. We simply can't afford it.
But for the time being, the brunt of any attack would be borne, just as it always had been, by the British regulars.
There ought to be at least 20,000 stormtroops or leopards drawn from existing units, ready to spring at the throat of any small landings or descents.
Thus began the never-to-be-forgotten British Commandos. One of their founders is Brigadier Peter Young.
I was one of the people who was lucky enough to get back from Dunkirk with my regiment. Of course, at that time we had nothing. No means of striking back at all, hardly a rifle in the battalion. We formed at Plymouth at the end of June 1940, after going round Fort Div and choosing all our own men. We chose reservists, men who'd been in action before at Dunkirk, men who wanted to fight, and we chose them from all units, including gunners and sappers, signalers, and we got down to it and started training these people straight away. They were all volunteers and all picked men. Churchill said in 1940 that every British soldier ought to take one Nazi with him. We in the commandos thought this was rather bad business. We thought we might settle for 10, but we didn't even all go 2.
These were men trained to kill at close quarters, to take one with them. We had courage, we were ready to die, but we needed Tommy guns, grenades.
Tommy guns? Grenades? In all of England, there are only 70,000 rifles. Millions needed. The threat is now. The danger, today. The British people scour the kingdom for guns.
Sergeant, these rifles haven't been used since the Indian Mutiny, 1857.
Well, are they still in working order?
Oh. They're fired. Yes.
Right, better take a look, Corporal. But you'll get them back when it's all over. Ta.
From ancient castles and country estates come other weapons. Kukris, maces, spears, battle axes. And at one of Britain's stately homes, a man makes ready.
I am ex-Detective Inspector Walter Henry Thompson, and was Winston Churchill's bodyguard for a period of nearly 18 years. I remember him so well saying, "You must take one with you." He himself intended that he would never be taken alive, and he issued direct instructions to me that I was to have his 4.5 Colt fully loaded. He intended to use every bullet but one on the enemy. The last one he saved for himself. Now, these were his favorite weapons. The Mannlicher rifle, the .38 Webley Scott, and the 4.5 Colt automatic. This was really his favorite weapon. And with this weapon, he was a dead shot. I remember at the latter part of the war, he fired at a target, and there was only one bullet that was not in the bullseye. Anyone that came within range of this weapon would never survive.
Now, the old lion, with her cubs at her side, stands alone against hunters who are armed with deadly weapons and impelled by desperate and destructive rage.
A few weeks earlier, Mr. Churchill sent this message across the Atlantic. Former naval person to President Roosevelt.
As you are no doubt aware, the scene has darkened swiftly. We expect to be attacked here, both from the air and by parachute and airborne troops in the near future. And we are getting ready for them. But I trust you realize, Mr. President, that the voice and force of the United States may count for nothing if they are withheld too long.
President Roosevelt's answer comes quickly. The United States will send guns.
At that time, it was a supreme act of faith and leadership for the United States to deprive themselves of this very considerable mass of arms for the sake of a country which many deemed beaten. They never had need to repent it. When the ships from America approached our shores with their priceless arms, special trains were waiting in all the ports to receive their cargoes. The Home Guard in every county, in every village, sat up all through the night to receive them.
Recruits for the Home Guard come from everywhere, from all walks of life. In mock combat, civilian soldiers practice battle tactics. Are there enough? Are they prepared? Are they in time?
Our most imminent dangers seemed to be the landing of comparatively small but highly mobile German tank forces. My thoughts were increasingly with home defense. At the end of June, the chiefs of staff suggested that I should visit the threatened sectors of the east and south coast. I inspected the Tyne and the Humber and many possible landing places. The Canadian division at Kent. I examined the landward defenses of Harwich and Dover.
The Prime Minister was shocked to hear that the 3rd Division, which was spread along 30 miles of coast and held back in reserve, had no transport to move it quickly to the point of action. Mr. Churchill's reaction is immediate.
Considering the great masses of transport, both buses and lorries, which there are in this country, it should be possible to remedy these deficiencies at once. There are large numbers of buses which even now are plying for pleasure traffic up and down the seafront at Brighton.
Churchill draws on another source of British strength, its scientists.
I use their brains and my power.
Immediately they create a sticky bomb with which tanks can easily be destroyed. Professor Frederick Lindemann of Oxford calls the Prime Minister's attention to a method of confusing German bombers by the use of misleading radio beams, so that many bombs fall in empty fields.
The situation had begun to change in a decisive manner. Our excellent intelligence confirmed that Operation Sea Lion had been definitely ordered by Hitler and was in active preparation. It seemed certain that the man was going to try.
British intelligence works day and night, assembling information from every source. From the French Maquis, from newly arrived refugees, from Norwegian sailors, from special agents hidden on the continent itself.
One could not help being inwardly excited by the atmosphere and the evidence of Hitler's intentions which streamed in upon us.
Rumors, and more rumors. Rumors that Nazi sympathizers are setting haystacks afire to guide German parachutists. Rumors that bodies of 40 German soldiers were washed up on the coast between the Isle of Wight and Cornwall. Mussolini's mouthpiece, Virginio Gaida, announces the German invasion for a particular Friday. And Churchill's answer?
Friday is as good as any day. Then the world shall cease wondering whether Britain will survive.
September 15. The weather is ideal for invasion. In England, 1 million men under arms lie waiting. Each man has a rifle. But rifles aren't enough. The Prime Minister addresses himself to President Roosevelt.
It has now become most urgent for you to let us have the destroyers for which we have asked. Mr. President, with great respect, I must tell you that in the long history of the world, this is the thing to do now.
President Roosevelt goes before the Congress and the country. He says, there is absolutely no doubt in the minds of an overwhelming number of Americans that the best immediate defense of the United States is the success of Britain in defending itself. August. The United States transfers 50 old destroyers to Britain in exchange for island bases in the West Indies.
The transfer to Great Britain of 50 American warships was a decisively unneutral act by the United States. But it was only the beginning.
If Great Britain goes down, the Axis powers will control the continents of Europe and Asia and Africa and Australasia and the high seas. And they will be in a position to bring enormous military and naval resources against this hemisphere. It is no exaggeration to say that all of us in the Americas would be living at the point of a gun. We must be the great arsenal of democracy.
Now, suddenly, all this sprang into decisive action, and the glorious conception of Lend-Lease was proclaimed.
Never again let us hear the taunt that money is the ruling thought or power in the hearts of the American democracy. Lend-Lease must be regarded as the most unsordid act in the whole of recorded history. From Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Churchill receives a verse by Longfellow.
Sail on, O ship of state. Sail on, O Union strong and great. Humanity with all its fears, with all its hopes of future years, is hanging breathless on thy fate. Now we were an armed nation. We had become a hornet's nest. Put your confidence in us. Give us your faith and your blessing, and under providence all will be well. We shall not fail or falter. We shall not weaken or tire. Neither the sudden shock of battle nor the long-drawn trials of vigilance and exertion will wear us down. Give us the tools, and we will finish the job.